All right, that was pretty cool. So my question, did he create energy? He threw a football, it lit a match, started a fire. So did he create energy? So before we move on, I just want you to stop, and you can pause it if you want, and just think in your head, yes or no, did he create energy? All right. So we have a match burning, right? And if you guys remember, if we have fire, I mean, we can see the light, so it's kind of like electromagnetic, but I would say it's thermal energy. All right, so what started that fire? It was the football moving. So what kind of energy did the football moving have? You should have said mechanical energy. All right, well, the person threw it. So when you throw something, that's you using mechanical energy. But where did that guy get the energy to throw it? And you might think, well, maybe the food that he eats. So here's a burger, right? This looks great, but that's not really what he ate. He ate a cow. Okay, and so then you have to ask, well, what did the cow get its energy from? Got its energy from grass, which had chemical energy, right? And so where did the grass get its energy from? And then we can go back to the sun, right? And so there was that nuclear energy, and that sun created the electromagnetic energy that the grass used, and then the cow ate the grass, which was chemical energy, and then the guy ate the cow, which is chemical energy, and then the guy threw the football, so mechanical energy, and then started the match, which had chemical energy on the match, and it turned into fire, which is thermal energy. So, did he create energy? Let's keep learning. So, all these changes, right? One form of energy changing into another form of energy is called an energy transformation. So, a change from one form of energy to another form of energy, we call that an energy transformation. You should pause the video now and write this definition down. Okay, hopefully you did that. And so if we continue, here is a single transformation. So I'll move my face out of the way for you to maybe see that. So a single transformation is like the fuel that we put in a car. That's chemical energy, and our cars use it to move, which is mechanical energy. So that's a single transformation. This form of energy transforms into this form of energy. And then we can have a little bit more complicated transformations, and we call those multiple transformations, right? And so you have the fuel, and that gets converted into electrical, which we use in our cars, which we could say is mechanical to move us places. We can also use chemical energy to make electricity, which can turn into light or sound, right? So single, just one change, multiple, this changes to this, changes to this. All right. So here's another example of a single transformation, or toaster, right? We plug it into the wall, the electricity flows through, and then it heats up our toast. And so that's electrical to thermal. This is one of my favorite transformations. If you think back, okay, what kind of energy do we need to think about in the sun, right? So it's the fusing and the fission of the nucleus of atoms, or nuclear energy. And those reactions in the sun are so powerful. Remember, it's like a bunch of atomic bombs in the sun, and those release two kinds of energy: electromagnetic, or light energy, and thermal, which is heat energy. And yes, plants use thermal energy. We all do. If it wasn't for the heat the sun made, then none of us would be alive. But the plant does a special process, maybe you've heard of it, where it takes light energy and it makes it into food. And so it's the light that the plant needs. So the electromagnetic energy is used by the plant to make food or sugar, which is chemical energy. So nuclear to electromagnetic to chemical, that would be a multiple transformation. Okay, so here we have the Newton's cradles, like my 7th graders made, but these ones work. Sorry. But anyway, so you release it and it goes back and forth. And so we don't actually get to see what happens, because it's a short clip and it stops. But my question, will it last forever? And the answer is no. It will eventually stop. And then you might say, well, why? It's because some of the energy leaves the system as heat, right? So the swing, and there's like the strings, and it's moving, and there's air, and that friction causes heat, right? So if you ever rub your hands together, you might feel your hands warm up, right? And so that's heat energy, and that's leaving the system. And so we can make this argument that all forms of energy can be transformed into other forms of energy, and therefore energy is not created or destroyed, but it changes forms, right? And so, like we saw in that very first example with the match being lit, it wasn't that energy just came out of nowhere. Like that energy came from somewhere, that came from somewhere, that came from somewhere. And so energy is constantly being changed. We call this the law of conservation of energy. And so you should pause the video and write this definition down. The law of conservation of energy. Energy is not created or destroyed, but it changes forms. Okay, so if you wrote that down, you can keep moving. You might have seen this before. This is a food chain or a food web, and it looks familiar, right? So we see our wonderful example of the sun, the plants using that sunlight to make food, and then the energy flows from the plants to the herbivores, and then it goes from the herbivores to the carnivores, and some of that energy has lost its heat, right? Like you can feel like your body's warm. It's because your cells are changing the chemical energy from the food into mechanical energy, and it's releasing heat. And so you know that this happens, especially like if you run around a lot, you feel really hot. That's why. It's because your body's releasing heat, energy. And so we say that energy flows through ecosystems, and it is recycled, right? And so the energy that we're using, that energy has been around for as long as we know time has existed. And so that energy just keeps changing from one form into another. So to sum things up, first, energy transforms into other types of energy. That's called energy transformation. Second, energy cannot be created or destroyed. It just changes forms, and we call that the law of conservation of energy. I hope this helped you guys understand the lesson. If you have any questions, let me know.